Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to tonight's game between Kasa Esports and Nightmare. And joining me in the booth today is, again, the one and only Zav. Hi, Zav. How we doing?
Hi, Nick. Doing pretty good. Excited for another night with Kasa, having them go up against a Nightmare today.
Yeah, and this we've got some good stories coming out of today's lineup. So, for those of you who might not know, Nightmare is a pretty well-established team as well, and has some very good players. So, we're expecting a great matchup between these two, especially given what we saw from Kasa just a couple of days ago in their previous game against Emote Down Mid.
Yeah,
If this is your first time, sorry, go ahead.
no, I was gonna say it was a great series against a Motown mid. They really showed some good mental fortitude and a lot of very close matches. So this should definitely be a real test for them going up against a very veteran team.
Yeah, and we saw a really nice contrast between the two teams last time between this very aggressive play style and the more structured style of Kasa Esports. And they're going to have that tested because Nightmare are known for being very mechanically good as well and also very stable in the way that they play. So I'm excited to see these two go head to head. And just so you guys know, the way the maps are going to work today is we are going to be kicking off with control maps, and then the loser will then pick the next type and map moving forward, and it will carry on like that as we go down. So the first maps available are going to be one of the three control maps.
Yeah, no musical chairs this time of us guessing what map it is going to be. You
Yeah.
don't have to get, hybrid wrong 3 times in a row. It's okay.
Yeah, with this, yeah, it was a little bit of a run around last time, but which one do you want to see as kickoff today? Which map would you like to see these two start on?
Hmm, that
Yeah, there's
is
some
hard to
good choice
say.
here.
I you know?
I think I would like some Ilios here. We got Nepal in the game a couple of days ago. For me, I would like to see some very aggressive hypermobility plays using that Lucio that we've seen so much in the support role be utilized even better on a map like Ilios.
Yeah,
That's
Ilios
my
is
preference.
definitely another favorite for a lot of people. Busan is interesting, but I think if I had to choose between not going back to Nepal again, just all right, we got Nepal last time, we got our wish. If we had to go for another one this time, I would definitely say Ilios is more interesting, and it's really interesting in the sense of that Lucio being such a commonly played character. There's a lot of opportunities that people would look for on Ilios for bumping
Mhm.
people off the map with the way that that map is set up, and it would definitely be interesting to see how that would play out.
I also think it's we've been seeing a lot of echo played in this, particularly by Casa and by other teams. Echo is proven to be quite popular by using this kind of tank copy strat. So you kind of double up on the tanks, especially paired with something like a Zarya, where we've seen these double grabs be just so strong. And I feel there's a lot of playmaking there as well available for something like an Echo to come in, or even something like a Genji, which we haven't seen too much of. But I do know that one of the players on Nightmare is a bit of a Genji lover, so maybe we'll get some spicy picks out like that too.
Genji would definitely be an interesting pick to see for that dive type playstyle. We didn't really see any of that at all last round.
Mhm.
If anything, the character that we saw diving the most last time was Echoes themselves. I know Emote Down Mid did a good job on their Echo of getting into the back of Kasa on the
Yeah.
one escort map on Dorado and just taking out Freya over and over again when they were making those final pushes, and it really made things difficult for Koss in that sense. So, Echo does have that mobility of, the quick flight, getting up and over walls at times. So it's definitely possible to see a lot more dive coming out if they throw in a Genji as well.
Yeah, we did see a lot of Tracer, which I would also expect to see. If we're talking about these kind of very hyper mobility champs, I would expect to see a lot of Tracer come out as well today. In terms of tanks, have you got any? I know you're a Winston fan. Do you want to see some more Winston?
Winston is definitely not one of my preferred tanks, but I know that he just brings a lot to the table. I personally am a very big Junker Queen fan as well as Hazard, but we
Mm.
haven't really had a chance to see much Hazard. Every time Hazard came out, he was pushed
No.
away very quickly. Same thing with Ramatra. Ramatra, another fan of mine, but it's always because it's brought back to the Zarya time and time again. She is just too reliable in that regard as
Yeah.
a tank for the teams.
I was actually quite surprised that I thought we might see a bit more Hazard, and I'm quite surprised we haven't seen more of that yet. And maybe we'll get some of that today because I think he can offer a lot, but it's like you say, it's Zarya is such a wall and such a staple, and it's quite hard to be able to kind of just move, especially in the way that we've seen her played with a lot of aggressive bubbling on champs like we even saw Reaper combo. We saw that work out really well. Just send that Reaper charging in with a bubble on top of them. And that seemed to work really well as well. So Zarya just seems to offer so much utility on top of just being this wall that you can't seem to get past. So it's kind of hard to argue with that, right?
Yeah, she's just really consistent across the board. Just brings that utility, that the offensive and defensive utility between the gravity ultimate and being able to bubble herself or allies, and it's just hard to go wrong with her. She doesn't
Hmm.
really fit into one playstyle or another. You can
Stable.
play her either very defensively or when the time calls for it, you can get very aggressive as well. Whereas some other tanks maybe play more into one role or the other. Like a Junker Queen is going to be much more offensive fronted overall, looking
Hmm.
for pull picks with the knife toss, and Winston maybe being a little more defensive with the bubble, or just being able to shield things in general for the team.
Yeah, and we did see Aksha take that Junker Queen and put in work on that champ when they played a couple of days ago. So definitely in the mix, and I would not be surprised to see that pulled out. We saw them be very good at adapting Kasa. The series that we saw previously, both teams, in fact. But I think the reason that Kasa came out on top, aside from just the way that the dice fell and playing really well, I think they were so good at adapting and figuring out preemptively, not just reactionary, but preemptively swapping, understanding what they were going to look to want to do. um, so I would like to see more of that from them as well, because I think that was a particular strength of theirs. And as we talk about, I do want to mention one last hero that we saw be so very dominant, and that is the Kiriko. Those Kiri ults were game defining. So I would very much expect to see Kiri as well come out between these two.
Well, I mean, you want to talk about dominant. The hero that I thought was the most dominant across the board on both sides and tended to be the linchpin decider in all the matches was the Sojourn. And I'm sure we're going to see a
Yeah, how can
lot
we forget
more
Sojourn? Yeah.
Sojourn this time around as
Yeah.
well. But I think my favorite hero swap that we actually did see, particularly for me on the tank side of things, was on that Flashpoint map. And in the final seconds, after they managed to fend off everybody with the Orisa, that Echo copying into the Orisa and they take control of the point, was actually the swap onto the Doomfist, where they
Oh,
went very
yes.
aggressively and engaged them back by their spawn, stalled them out, and managed to even pick up a few individual picks, which helped stagger the team. And they did a really good job with that Doomfist in the last seconds of that match to just really solidify disruption to take control of that final point.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to give you guys a little bit of context before we are looking to get into game one here, um, Nightmare are a team that have come from the OWCS. So uh, I think a lot of people going into this might be expecting Nightmare to kind of maybe run away with this. But it should be noted that there are a couple of players not playing today, as far as we know it so far. So there will be a couple of replacement players, very notably. And I just want to make sure that I got this correct before I let you guys know which players specifically are not playing. But I believe the tank player for Nightmare is unavailable, as well as I believe one of their DPS. But I apologize if I'm wrong on that one. Um, so there are a couple of replacements here for Nightmare, but they are a very solid team, a very well-known team as well. So I think we're going to have a very fun fight on our hands between these two.
Yeah, definitely some veteranship there for Nightmare coming into this, but like it is stated, they're coming in a little cold. Uh, they haven't, recently had some changes, and they're going to be
Mm,
not as fresh coming into these matches as Kasa is. They rebuilt their team just a couple weeks ago, a little over a week ago, and Kasa did a
yeah.
little bit as well fairly recently. And but they're coming off of a fresh game, a fresh win. They've got a little momentum. They're feeling pretty good about themselves. So
Oh,
it'll
yeah.
be interesting to see how Kasa. This is going to be a good test for Kasa to really you know, see how they fare coming into this type of a match.
And I think it might come down to momentum, right? From either side, because it should be noted that while Nightmare are running with a couple of replacement players, they are coming off the back of a 3-0. So they are kind of they are top of the leaderboard right now, as we know it. But Kasa, that was a big game for them against Emote Down Mid. So that momentum might carry them through to be able to take this win as well. So I think it's going to come down to who is going to get off to a hot start here. And if you don't get off to a hot start, how can you adapt across the rest of the games?
Absolutely. I think one of the things I'm going to be looking to see is in these early matches, how close are things throughout
Mhm.
the rounds, because we got to see really close games every single time in the last matchups for Casa, but
Yeah.
we all know that's not how it always goes. In fact, it very rarely goes to where every single match is very close, coming down to the wire in every single
Oh, we
round.
got
And
lucky.
there will definitely be times
Mm.
where there are going to be absolute routes against a team, and we didn't get any of that last time. It'll be interesting to see if we see any sort of one-sided matches this time, if it's maybe map specific or if it just is a consistent process across the board this time around.
Yeah, we were treated to pretty much every game was very close previously. And I think one thing I'm going to look for particularly is I think this is going to come down to whether Nightmare can show their mechanical skill in these kind of 1v1s and take these, uh, I guess you might call them ego 1v1s, and whether they can win them out or whether, Casa can come together as a unit, really. And I think it's going to come down to the cohesion for Casa and the individual mechanical skill for Nightmare, and which one wins out on top between those two.
Definitely, definitely. I mean, we've seen Casa. They're not foreign to letting ego take over at times as well. We've seen a couple players that
We
as
did.
soon as they start feeling themselves, they start doing really well. They get a little more aggressive and they start looking for those 1v1 trade offs, and it can work out very much so in their favor. But it can also put them in a position where after a few rounds of doing very well into it, maybe at a key moment, it gives the other team an opportunity to go into a 4v5 push after eliminating that sort of, arrogant play that maybe came out from an individual, and now they're able to get themselves back into the match a little bit. So,
Yeah,
it's all good fun to have, a little ego there, really flex your stuff. You want to, assert your dominance as a player in a matchup, but you don't want it to, impact the
to
greater
overtake.
development of the match.
I have to say, obviously, these are very experienced players, all of them. So I'm sure that they won't suffer from this. But I have to say, if I'm playing, one of my favorite things is taking those ego 1v1s and making someone swap to your character to take those 1v1s because you're kind of dominating so well. But that's just my own ego problems. These
Oh,
guys
there is
obviously are a lot more experienced.
there is no greater compliment than
Mm,
forcing another player to have to swap into your counter in order to deal with you. Being
yeah.
able to make them do that, have them get off of what they would rather be playing in order to specifically deal with what your team is doing or what you're playing. If you specifically are the problem in that sense, it should always be taken as a compliment. There are people who like to get upset about somebody swapping into their counter pick, but them swapping into their counter pick means that that is all they can do. So if you are able to, you know, adapt to them counterpicking you and still work around it, it is oftentimes going to work out in your favor.
I think this is where the cohesion might come in for Kasa and what might help them edge it out. Because as we mentioned before, I think one of the things they did really well was, was preemptively making those choices before they'd even done the swap from remote down mid. So if they can, and we know that Kasa have done their research. We know that they are very hot on making sure they know what they're coming into. So they will be coming into this game with as much information as they can. And I wonder if they can utilize that properly to make the right calls at the right time to either force those swaps out, or once they swap into, let's say, a tank matchup, and then they already have the counter prepped and ready because that push is already then started. So they can't change it then. So I wonder if that is going to help them just tip over at the edge slightly in this matchup, as we are starting to get into the lobby. So not long now left until we get into game number 1. And if this is your first time watching with us, thank you for joining. Big shout out to all the people behind the scenes here who make this possible. It's not just us giving you this game. There's a lot of people behind the scenes. So thank you to everyone that helps make this possible. As we look to get into game number 1 between Kasa Esports and Nightmare. And as I say that,
we might be having a little bit of holdup where it's people are assembling their heroes. We're waiting to see people hover their initial heroes at this time, but it looks like we are getting a nice wintry location with some chilly weather once more, snow-capped mountains, and we are seeing heroes being hovered for the first time right now. Just 20 seconds to go, and it is looking like we are going to see Axure and S Design, both tanks on the teams, locking in the Zarya off the rip. But we are seeing a few different other picks at this time, and we'll see if it changes, though.
And here we go as we get into game number 1 between these two giants of Overwatch.
And there's some last-second swaps like we were talking about.
Yeah, you never get baited. And we see Calms going onto that Tracer that we've seen them be so successful with. Sunnyside on that Sojourn. As we start to get the first picks come out, Ast gets the mirror onto action already. Nightmare making a statement in the beginning as Rocket gets Sunnyside. That's 2 players down. And Rocket gets another one on Reddick. So already the first fight very early on, pretty heavily and handily in the favor of Nightmare.
Yeah, very quick pickups there by Nightmare. It is that Symmetra, which we didn't really get to see too much of last time, and it's going to be interesting to see how it goes out around this time with the matchup. We only saw it on one of the matches on the push map where it was able to hold those corners consistently, and on this map specifically, we do have a lot of entryways where Sim is going to be able to put those turrets and have a little bit of control there. So you're just going to have a lot of laser action coming at you between the between Zarya and the Symmetra.
Yeah, there's a lot of car wash places. There's already Chopper taking that fight into Sunnyside, getting the kill as we're with Calms right now. And we have those supports that we talked about, the Lucio Kiri on both sides. No surprises there. We've seen how strong these 2 particular supports are, with the Kiri just getting these pickoffs as well as being able to output the incredible healing in that ultimate. So that pickoff, just 1 is all it takes, and it's had to back Kasa off to try and recontest, and they're looking for a different angle, trying to go through this side room instead of the main entrance where they know the Sim turrets are set up and ready to go.
And as we can see, they actually have Sim turrets set up in both doorways, and here comes Kasa now, forcing their way through the doorway, taking out those turrets. Zarya trying to push through and create some space for their team. Sunnyside locked up in the room, having to hang back, just trying to get some chip damage out, waiting for the HP to come through. Those Sim turrets right there on the point, not letting them push on easily. Kasa having to take their time and really work their way up. Carms is just looking for something on the backside, you know, diving on there, and they are going to see Sunnyside and Axure pick up 1 apiece, and that's going to swing things into their favor. But there is the Sim ult out to create some space on the point for Nightmare at this time.
But the pickups are huge. Axure is finally waking up here, getting the pick. Sunnyside off the back of it as well, and that is a great take. I was wondering whether they were going to wait for the ults to try and take that site, because it can be a difficult one to push into, particularly as we talked about into this Sim. and they just get through. That first pick was huge from Aksha, and they use that momentum to carry on and keep it going. But as we look here, we have 4 ults coming up for Nightmare, as this grab could be huge. Aksha doesn't quite have it yet. There's the Kyrio dropped on the floor, as we see that they're going to contest, and we're going to wait to see. There's the grab. It actually whips, I believe. Rocket does get a kill on Sunny's side, though. There's the grab from Aksha, but the beats are out to keep everybody up. Hex does get Luke, though. It's a 1-for-1 trade. This is still anybody's game, and Chopper, there's that kill from Chopper and Rocket. Both of these DPS putting in the work to get this overtime in their favor. And a little hiccup in the middle where they were able to pressure Kasa, but overall, pretty strong luck as Calms was trying to keep that overtime going. But I think point number 1 is going to be going to Nightmare.
Very strong showing there by Nightmare. You know, Rocket bringing in that triple to end things for this first round of match 1. But it is to be stated that Kasa, when it came down to it, they were able to, you know, play ball. They were able to throw hands. It took them a little bit to get started. It was a little bit of a slow start for them. Hopefully they can have a better go of it this time around, you know, not get forced out of the match so quickly. And it's those sim turrets are going to be the first thing that they're going to have to look to deal with.
Yeah, and this is the power of the Sojourn. We talked about this. We touched on it briefly in the beginning, but the reason this pick has been so strong is these initial pickoffs using that railgun can just completely come out of nowhere and surprise damage you. And those pickups then allow the rest of the team to walk over the fight using the number advantages. And as we talk about it, Luke already picked Sunny side, and that's a few times now that Sunny has been targeted and picked off early, already sitting at a numbers disadvantage for Kasa.
Yeah, that immediately alleviates, you know, a lot of pressure from Nightmare, and it allows them to just be really aggressive where they want to. And there's Luke picking up another one on Carms, and you know, there's that Lucio, the support for Nightmare, picking up one of the DPS each. Sunny finally getting in, taking out the Zarya, and that's going to be the front side down. But Sunny is down once again. Red X taking out the opposing Kiriko, and it is slowly shifting into Kasa's favor here, but they got to get onto the point and get control of it. Axer picking up Symmetra, and they are slowly going to be able to take the point here as they wipe out the remaining players. Axer with a nice double, and Red X getting the final there on Chopper.
Yeah, this is what we talked about with the Zarya, right? You give them that charge, and they are just this walking wall of damage, and you cannot get past them. And we see the Zarya matchup again. We know Axer is so strong on this pick, sitting at that high charge, just holding this front side. And this, they're going to need to find a way around, and doing a good job of backing up as well, playing this high ground space on one of the sides to force them into one way or the other. And already you see Ast going down quite low, being really heavily pressured as Sunnyside gets the pick on Rocket, gets another one. Oh, Sunny gets a triple, just absolutely rolls that fight. And now Sunny is waking up. This is what we love to see.
A little bit of momentum finally swinging into the favor of Kasa. There's beautiful plays there by Sunny. We had some really nice early pressure where they were able to take out one of the supports early on, which made it difficult for Nightmare to be able to stay in on those extended fights, and it ended up really hurting them in the end.
Yeah, absolutely. As the percentage is ticking up for Kasa as they try to hold them out. We see them maneuvering around slightly, trying to get position. And I believe that's Rocket or Chopper just making their way around the side. That's a huge grab against everyone. Comes with a double bomb. What a combo. Really well executed from Kasa, and this is what we talked about. The cohesion, the team play between them. They were ready and set up for that. Aksha with a huge grab into the double pulse bomb. And that is going to give them so much room to play with on this second point.
Yeah, they're going to look to be a little more aggressive here and try and hold them off the point as the time is going to run down. The percentage getting close to that 100%, but we are going to see Nightmare having ultimates coming up across the board, and here they are popping it, getting very aggressive. The first one coming out by Symmetra, but Axer still finishes them off, taking them out of that equation, and it's going to be a quick 2-kill on both sides, but Chopper coming in with a triple for Nightmare at this time.
Oh, Chopper, the Sojourn, putting in so much work, and I believe that is a full wipe from Chopper, using that railgun time and time again. And this is what we talked about. This just surprise, very fast damage coming out from these Sojourns is unreal. along with the mobility as well. So great play from Chopper. Brings them back in it.
Quite an incredible play by Chopper. It's just, like you're saying, the damage just happens so quickly, and that railgun being able to penetrate for multiple targets, you know, that's really where it can come down if you find yourself lined up in any capacity. You know, being able to hit multiple people is just dire and, you know, can be just absolutely destructive to a team.
Yeah, and I think this is going to be perhaps on comms a little bit, maybe too. They need to be able to track Chopper's movements, figure out where Chopper is, and either go for it. And there we go. As I talk about it, Red X gets on top of them, kills Chopper, and that's a lot of their damage out. Ast does get the trade, so it is a 1-for-1. Only one support available for Kasa. Everyone is on his point. That's a great boop as well. Hex gets the position, uses that wall ride to boot them off the map, and Sunny with the pick off the back of it. And that is a point take for Kasa. Really good comeback. And this is all to play for now. Both teams showing us what they've got.
You know, Kasa coming alive there. Like we talked about, they were a little slow in that first round, getting warmed up, and they showed here in the next round that they were ready to go. They were ready to throw hands and get down and dirty into the mix of it. And it was a great play at the end there where they were contesting. Chopper went down, and we had two players from Kasa get on the point, start to back cap it, and that kind of forced Luke to have to come over. Luke and Rocket come over and contest the point a little bit, but it was a great play by Hex, knocking Rocket off the map and really allowing them to take full control of that point. And the time just ran out, and, you know, Nightmare wasn't able to contest the overtime.
Yeah, and I think, you know, this is part and parcel of why we see so much Lucio. It just offers so much. The damage, the positioning, the ability to flank and make these plays, the speed, the beats as well is such a powerful ultimate to be able to use. So Hex showing us why it's such a strong pick, as we see the first contest for this point happening as a control point is about to get unlocked. Aksha is posturing, and already Chopper goes down low. The cleanse comes out just to keep them up, try and keep them healed. Already trying to take an angle, as we see, and this is what I talked about, Calms marking Chopper, making sure they don't have complete free reign, as they are a bit off to the side. And Ast is trying to push forward with a high level of charge, actually. They know their focus. The Kiri gets out very low, and then Ast just does a 180 spin, gets them both. Rocket as well off the back, and Aksha just throws himself off and says, okay, done deal, let's regroup and reset.
Yeah, that's going to be the first point in favor to Nightmare. It's a good, solid team fight for them. You know, the thing I'm looking to see is what Carms is going to be able to do, and it looks like we are going to see Carms swapping. You know, as much as he wants to be on that Tracer, it worked out a lot more on Nepal with the very tight space of the map, but on here where things are a little more open, it can be difficult for Tracer to get around and get that pressure onto their Sojourn in the back line with all that space, you know, leaving them out in the open to be able to shot at while they try to maneuver to the backside.
Yeah, but you do have to be careful as a Pharah here, especially when you've got Sojourn popping so much. So that's why you see playing a lot of cover here. That's a great pick, though, from Calms. Finds Chopper in the back somehow, as Annie does get the trade. So it's a 1v1. Aksha does kill themselves, but using their abilities on that one. And Rocket and Ash just come in and clean house. And this is looking pretty dominant for Nightmare. So maybe a little hiccup in the second, but they look pretty strong on this point. And it's going to be hard for Kasa to get back in. They do have ultimates coming up. Action nearly with that grab. Red X nearly with the Kiri as well. And Hex not too far away from Beat. So I think they're going to have to play for these because it's 85%. There's not long to go. They either need an early pick or they're going to have to pop these ults. And there we go. Red X drops it immediately. The counter grab, though, is great. As Chopper off the back of that cleans house, gets two. Ast with a third as well. Sunny does get the trade, but this is all done. And map number one looks to be going pretty handily to Nightmare, despite the stand-ins. Great work from Nightmare, but a good showing from Kasa. Signs of life.
There is a pulse. There is a pulse. It is not a complete rout, even though that third round was definitely in favor of Nightmare. They came a bit alive after they got, you know, torn apart a little bit in that middle match, and that went to Kasa, but they really dominate well in a more open space map where there is more room for them to maneuver, it looks like, at this time. You know, it was only on Nepal where it was very tight, very close quarters all the time, where they had a little more difficulty. And I think that's where the Tracer really came into being a factor for Kasa up against them. Because so far, when they've been moved into those open space maps, they have a little more difficulty. Chopper seems to do a lot better. They're able to get around and have a little more freedom and not be pressured as much by the backline pressure of Kasa.
Yeah, I think Kasa maybe they might be looking to just shore up those edges here. Those initial pickoffs are damaging them so heavily because I feel like the way that Kasa want to play this is to use their ultimates, you know, build up those ults, try and build them up quickly, use their cohesion, use those combos as we saw them do so effectively to essentially completely wash the fight. Because if it's left to these very mobile, just poking and prodding comps, we see these Sojourns just going absolutely crazy and getting these initial picks. And then once you're already a man down, it's a lot more difficult then to pull off the team fight wins. So interesting to see what Kasa's going to choose here. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, Kasa losing the first round means that they are now going to pick map number 2 and what type of map and which map we are going to. And it looks like we might be going to Shambali.
A little bit of escort. But I do want to touch a little bit on the end of that last match. You know, it really showed some of that experience and just readiness of Nightmare, where, you know, as soon as Kasa was ready to push in, they immediately countered, multiple ults ready. You know, that Kiriko ultimate came out trying to, get Kasa onto the point, and they had the Gravwell ready in the point, but then the Symmetra used their ult to split it in order to also block off some of the damage and supporting capabilities, and that blocked off the Pharah a little bit, who was trying to flank and put pressure on the opposite side. So well done there by them.
Yeah, so I'm expecting quite a lot of switch ups here for Shambali. There's a lot of tight corners here, some slightly longer sight lines, but a lot of tight corners and a lot of high ground for mobile DPS characters.
Yeah, a lot of elevation, a lot of elevation.
Yeah. So that's why we see Ast moving on to the Diva. It looks like they're going to try and maneuver around this rather than have a more stalwart tank sitting in the front. And I want to talk about Luke here and this pick from Luke.
See that Wu Yang.
Yeah, we have not really seen much Wu Yang, but I love this hero. I think there's so much that Wu Yang can offer, especially onto a hypermobile tank like a Diva. Just dropping that ult as the Diva wants to go in could be so powerful just as a 1-2. And then Chopper moving on to this Ashe as well to kind of sit and put down some suppressing fire as well through this first corner.
And talking about that elevation, there it is, the Echo coming in. We've been talking about the Echo. It's going to be there. There was an Echo on both sides, both teams looking to make use of that hero. And it's going to start off with Karms taking that initial trade. And very quickly, Rocket is going to swap off to the Tracer. And they're going to look to try and be a menace in the back line. But talking about that elevation, we've got Sunnyside here on the Freya, getting aggressive, hopping around back and forth in front of the walls, trying to get some pickoffs. And it's going to be another pickoff for Karms there, right back again on Rocket after they swapped to that Tracer. And so they are not letting Rocket get momentum and get into this match here early on.
No, but I do wonder if the Tracer pick is more about Sunnyside being on the Freya, because I think Freya can be quite vulnerable because they tend to do sit like quite far back when they want to fire off. At least that's what we saw from the games previously. So they can be isolated. And I wonder if that's what the Tracer is for, to try and take that out. As Karms is got the better of that early on. And we see here Aksha on this Ram. The Kirill is dropped down as we are just fighting at the front at this point. Actually gets very low though. Annie finishing that off, looking to push forward off the back of the Kiri, but goes a little too aggressive. Hex picks that up. Aston Chopper though on the back, getting those kills and rooting Kasa. So a little rethink here from Kasa.
Diva a little slow with the ult charge, not quite there yet. Looking like Luke is waiting potentially for that. They didn't have to use their ult there in that last exchange, even though Onion did go down early on in the exchange despite having popped their own ultimate. And here they go actually right now, Rocket going in with the ultimate. They put it down on Rocket. not picking up anybody off of that exchange. So they
there we go.
managed to pick up one there on Hex and one after another. Ast picking up one, Rocket with another one for a double, and they managed to get a few kill pickups here in order to push Kasa back once again.
Yeah, and this is the pressure the Tracer can put out, right? Just this poke and prodding with burst damage from that bomb, picking up the 2 kills. But look at the ults we've got on board here. Calms with theirs, and we've seen how powerful this Echo ult can be if you select the right target. And already Calms getting that pick on Chopper, the isolated target. And we've seen Echoes do this time and time again so effectively, not even having to really use much for it. Red X and Hex, both support ults ready. So this should be, in theory, a good push if they can coordinate this Kasa.
And we actually seen
Karm's
that Echo right now.
Diva.
Karm's on it, going to the Diva with that Echo swap, and we're going to look to see that ultimate come out. The explosion going through. They do pick up one. Axer manages to pick up Aston, but it's going to be a quick turnaround for Nightmare, picking up 2 with Aston and Chopper getting 1 apiece.
Yeah, the Bob putting in so much work. You can see the health bars going so low. Sunny, literally 1 HP, finally goes down as Rocket manages to swing around and finish that. And Annie on this Kiri is putting in work to finish off these kills as well. But that was just a good bomb placement, I think. It was a great try from Calms as they swapped to the Diva as well, but great ult usage from
It was a really good
Nightmare.
start. Really good stop by Nightmare there, as they were just, 1 meter off of getting that next checkpoint to extend their time. They've only got 15 seconds left here, so they need to get in and get something going.
And that's why we see the beast drop. They need to just push in here and get on it. And Chopper already gets Sunny, so that's a lot of the damage gone. Calm's gone as well. This does not look good for Kasa. This looks like a really good hold, just shy, and no one can touch the point. 102 meters as Chopper just finishing off those kills at the end on Ash.
Great hold there by
tough.
Nightmare, for sure. It was, that swap onto the Tracer was a little rough at the start, but it came through in the back half of that defense. They were able to get back there and put a lot of pressure on the back line of Kasa, and it definitely took away some of their attention. Kasa had a really strong showing through that first push and up into that big stretch. Yeah, but as soon as they got to that open space at that last bit of the checkpoint, that's where they started to have some of those problems. There's a lot more high ground, and they're able to be attacked from multiple angles at that time. Even being flanked, just directly from their backside throughout the entire push.
Yeah, I think it's this combination, and I like that you picked out Rocket here on the Tracer, because I think it's this combination of this front side poke pressure from Rocket, and then this Ash just sitting on elevation, from the backside, putting out so much damage. And the Ash damage can add up so fast. The combination of these two things, they just didn't have a way to kind of get onto the back line. They were running this ram to try and hold this front side of the cart, pushing it forward, but they had no way really aside from the Echo. And then really good target selection, I think, is what it came down to from Nightmare. Identifying the Echo was the problem and taking them out early on and repeatedly after they got a good start, making it very difficult and pretty free for Chopper. As you see, Chopper doing something similar, but trying to get this initial pick from a Widow. As we see Calm staying on that Echo. And Aksha, as we talked about, moving on to that Junker Queen. We talked about them on this pick previously and how effective that was. So hoping to see it. And there we go. Just as I call it out, Aksha gets the pick on Luke. And that's a 1-for-1 trade.
But more importantly, it takes away one of the supports. It's going to, take away some of their sustain, and Aksha picking up a nice kill there on Ast, and that's going to be the front line gone for Nightmare at this time. And so that's going to hold them up a little bit here, and that's going to be a nice initial stop there by Kasa to give them some time.
Yeah, and when you're at this level of Overwatch, we talk about this all the time. These first pickoffs can make or break the fight very decisively and very quickly. So that's huge from Aksha with this front side pressure on this Junker, as going down pretty low. Actually goes down fully to Ast, manages to finish that kill, which is huge. Chopper making that switch to the Cassidy, as Calms opting to match this Tracer to see if they can get some similar work done on this defense. And Sunnysider stalwartly sitting on this Freya on the high ground.
Nightmare really capitalizing on taking Aksha out of that equation, and being able to push up right now, and they're taking positioning. That D.Va holding the high ground as the payload moves through that choke point, and they're just gonna keep it steady there. The dropping the beat coming through, and they're looking to be a little aggressive. Not the dropping the beat, but the rallying cry by Axer there, but Axer still falls on that. Ast taking him out once again.
Yeah, and this is just the mobility of D.Va being able to play around these houses and there's elevation up here, and everyone is hidden in that room. This looks really bad. Calms does get a kill on Chopper, which is huge. The Kyriel is dropped just to try and get them to move forward and be able to contest this, because the point is close. So this might be the deciding fight. Luke gets the kill on Calms. Rocket gets Hex. The picks are coming thick and fast, and I think this is going to be over surprisingly quickly, as they've already moved the point to the 0 point, and is 1 minute 47 on the clock. A decisive victory for Nightmare, and looking like they're taking no prisoners in this series. Kasa are going to have to come up with something, and come up with something fast for map number 3.
And despite Axer getting the play of the game there, or the play of the match, you know, it's just not going to be enough for the overall equation of this turnout. And they had a really good stop, but as soon as Nightmare is able to get into that open space, there's just not a lot that Kasa's been able to do to stop them so far. So it will be interesting to see what kind of adjustments they end up making here, as we are going to move into round 3, and this is an elimination round of this matchup for Kasa at this time. So it's a do or die moment for them, backs against the wall.
Yeah, and I wonder if psychologically you're thinking, when you're going up against a team that you know is incredibly skilled, like Nightmare, and have some very experienced players, I wonder if this is the point where you get to the elimination map, so to speak, and you send it. Because you could try and play it safe and play the same heroes you've been playing, but I think sometimes when you're maybe feeling like the underdog, you just want to throw out some spice, throw out some picks, throw out your pocket picks, your pocket strats, and try and use that confusion to gain the upper hand and gain the momentum for Kasa. So I think that's what I would like to see from them. I think the time is gone now. You've lost 2 maps. You've dropped the first 2. I think the time has gone to play it safe. It's do or die map. Pick a map you're comfortable on. Pick a map you know well, and show something you haven't shown as yet. Throw as a pocket pick in there.
Definitely a possibility for an approach they take. They might even use this opportunity, but like we're saying, this is an opportunity for them to try something new, but this is also an opportunity for them to practice more of what they want to work on in their future matches, because this is a very high level team. And so you get to really actually hunker down on your strategy and try and see what needs adjusting in that strategy should you go into this type of matchup again. They could use this match as an opportunity to really, try and determine what they can work on for their future matches should they end up in a situation like this again. But I definitely would like to see them, like you're saying, this is just, you could just send it, try different stuff, see what works. Maybe, you need to experiment a little bit here. What you've been doing hasn't been working. And if you've got enough information around that, spice it up a little bit, like you're saying.
This is what I mean. I mean, Kasa is a team that does a lot of research. They know their stuff. They have a very good coaching staff behind them as well. So I'm sure that they're saying to them right now, okay, I mean, if you're in the camp right now, what is it you're wanting them to do? Try and play your game, or try and play against Nightmare's game. And I think that's the big distinction. Do they want to play what they are comfortable in, or do they want to make Nightmare uncomfortable? As we get onto New Queen Street here for map number 3, a push map. We've seen hyper mobility be very effective on this map, which is probably why we're going to see some similar things. The Echo, the Sojourn. I expect not much deviation from the support role either. Lucio, Red X sitting on that Kiri as well. And it looks like they're just going to try and play their game here, Kasa, and just try and execute better to take this home on map number 3.
And looking at it, Rocket is back on that Sim, and Sim is one of those heroes for this map where you have an infinite amount of places in which you can place those turrets and be a distraction, be a menace, and apply pressure, especially as the payload moves throughout the map. But here we are, 30 seconds in, and the payload hasn't moved yet. It's just been a bit of a back and forth trade between the two teams, feeling each other out, trying to establish position, and it's going to be Kasa taking the first initial control of it.
Oh. And there's the first pick from Calms. That's huge. And I think they were just poking and prodding and seeing who could get that first pick to try and then use that momentum to push forward, but still being stalled out despite being one down. As we see again, Calms is so good at finding these angles. The Sojan Chopper was so low. One tiny bullet would have taken them out, but the heals are there already to keep them up. In Aksha fighting on this front side, trying to hold it down. The payload is moving now for Kasa, so Luke getting the pick off on Calms finally, getting that annoying echo out of the way. Aksha trading in kind, getting the double, and this is what we wanted to see from the tank, using that Zarya frontside pressure to gain their movement forward with a little sneaky backdoor, I think. To take
like we were talking about last week with this map specifically, it's really easy in the middle of a fight for just one person to sneak onto the point, get control of it, and start moving it back in the other direction. And even though that was, a win for Kasa in that exchange, the payload got sent almost all the way back, a little bit past the starting point. And so, it's a little slow for them getting it back to where it was, but they are advancing steadily right now, being aggressive and pushing through as the Kiriko ult is coming through once again. And there's the grab well in the corner. Aksha with a nice pickup on Chopper, and that's going to be 2 down for Nightmare, and momentum is rolling with Kasa.
Okay, so I love this from Aksha. We saw this in the last game as well of a moat down mid. It was this identification of the Sojourn being such an issue that Aksha was so willing to solo grab them. And I love that we're seeing that again. They know that Chopper is causing mayhem with this, with these picks. So it just says, you know what? I'm gonna take you out, and then we're able to run over the rest of the fight, and it works again. So I love this identification and this adaptation as Calms is now rolling over it, and they are looking so good. Look at how far they've moved it, 80 meters, and all it took was for them to play their game and a little change in their target selection.
Sticking to what they know, sticking to what they're comfortable with, and they're seeing how well it works. This was a map they probably felt pretty good on after last time up against Emote down mid. This was the map where they brought it all the way back 112 meters to push it 118 and, take that win after all that time in the match.
Yeah, and we see Calms on that echo, copying the Zarya, trying to find a grab angle. Rocket does get the pick on Sunny, though. So they are 1 down, and I think they might have to back it up. Redex gets so low. That's a great leap cleanse just to stay alive. Trying to keep the Zarya up in that corridor, hidden in that corner, but Chopper on the side, finding the angle. Luke as well, getting Redex, and this is looking like a good, solid push. There's going to need to be a full regroup here from Kasa, but a lot of room to play with.
Unfortunately,
and a lot of time left on the clock.
Kasa has a lot of time, a lot of room, a lot of space. The payload is only just getting back to that middle point. So it's going to be slow going for Nightmare initially here. It's going to have to make its steady way up, and it's going to be plenty of time for Kasa to regroup and get back to pushing onto them.
Yeah, Aksha's nearly got this grab, though, and I'm sure they are looking. There it goes. Chopper gets Calms, gets a double, actually. I wanted to see them use it on Chopper again because they had this ult, but it looks like they opted to just drop it at their feet, Aksha. They pay for it as Chopper sitting in the back gets a double kill. Aksha managing to play around this cover so well, though, with the Kiri keeping them alive, keeps that robot in place. They are eventually going to get pushed off it. Aksha does get the trade. But they stall out so much that it's going to allow them to regroup a lot quicker than they would have otherwise. So just a really nice use of cover.
Probably going to be able to see Nightmare make the payload up to this first checkpoint. Maybe even get it here initially off the push as Kasa's regrouping, but Kasa is dropping down, and they are getting onto that point very quickly to contest it. And we're going to see a very quick exchange. Redex got 1, but it was a quick turnaround as Nightmare picks up 2. Luke and Ask 1 apiece. Ask with a double now. Rocket for the other, and they are going to clean up Kasa here in that exchange. But Aksha takes Luke down, going down without a fight, and it is going to be checkpoint advancement there for Nightmare.
Yeah, the momentum is firmly in Nightmare's favor at the moment. But I do want to point out this is one of the the reasons that Zarya is so strong. And it was a tiny moment there that I hope we might be able to see later on. But the shielding, being able to shield on a whim very fast and stopping that echo, bursting them all down. As we see the wall gets dropped, so does the beats. They are sending everything here, Nightmare, not afraid to use these ults to keep the momentum moving forward as Ast and Chopper go crazy off the back of it. And this looks pretty bad for Kasa now. The momentum has swung in a big way towards Nightmare, as it looks like they might even get past this 101 meters. And it's going to be all on Kasa to see if they can move it all the way back. And already Sunny getting so low, nearly going down instantly, barely getting out of spawn, to be honest. As we see them back up, they're going to play pretty conservative, I think, here from Nightmare, understanding that they may have some ults to use to try and push them forward.
Well, falling back there a little bit, it gives them the opportunity to make use of the flanking pressure. If they had stayed pushed up, they only had really one angle to put the pressure on, but now they're able to hit them from multiple sides, and there it is, Chopper picking up Axture in this exchange early on.
Yeah, and immediately Calms drops the grab. It's a great grab, actually. Sunnyside and Hex over the top of it do manage to get enough damage to get the couple of picks, and that's huge. That stalls them out in a big way. Annie getting low, hiding behind the box, but Chopper coming in, getting a great railgun shot onto Sunny, who is getting caught out quite a bit on this Sojourn, unfortunately. And here we go. They're sending it forward. Chopper just getting out of dodge, moving to the left. Axture has the damage to get through Ast. Chopper again getting that railgun kill on Calms, who is getting picked off on this Echo. And these individual picks are stalling this out really nicely for Nightmare. As we see Axture holding this front side, doing everything they can. Rocket getting Sunnyside again. Sunnyside's having a tough day today, but Calms on the other side gets a double. And this is what happens if you let the Echo free as soon as Chopper goes down.
Great hold there by Kasa. They were really aggressive with it, even though they were dying and, you know, just kind of cycling kills, staggering in a little bit. They were close enough to their spawn where they were able to do that, and it worked out for them because they managed to stop them half a meter before it could get to that checkpoint. And so it's a really great stop there for Kasa, and now they're able to push the payload back in the other direction a little bit onto Nightmare's side.
That was a very aggressive attempt from Redex, and maybe just trying to die quicker, honestly. But look at the distance. 100.6. There is there's half a meter in this game right now. So if Kasa can hold on, regroup, they don't have the ult advantage right now. Rocket and Annie both sitting on theirs. Luke not too far away. Sunnyside, you have this ult. You need to go big here. And there they go. They drop it, but it doesn't look like they're getting any picks. Ast does get Axture. This looks really bad. Sunny getting really low. Ast runs them down. And oh no, it's fallen apart right at the end as Ast and Chopper moving forward, pushing it nearly all the way. There needs to be something here. Is there anything they can use? Calms really close to that ult. It could come down to this, but someone needs to touch. It's nearly at the end, 124. And there we go, the Venture. Sunnyside just to stall the point. They're spawn camping them. Nightmare showing them what for. You're not even going to get out of spawn as Ast takes out the Venture who was stalling it out. I don't think they're going to be able to touch. They are finally back though. Red X does get Rocket. Oh, and Hex gets Chopper. Wait, it's not over. The kills are coming thick and fast. The trades are coming out. Calms gets Luke. Annie, though, Ast sitting on this front side. This Zarya will not die. Axture finally goes down as well. And Ast holds strong. The Kiri combo. No one can get past them. And that is a straight 3-0 sweep from Nightmare. We thought they might be able to come back in it, but oh boy, Nightmare showed up.
That was a really strong finish at the end there by Nightmare, but it doesn't go without saying that Kasa put up an incredible fight throughout that, and I really thought that there was a good opportunity for Kasa to make that third game win theirs, but Nightmare just really came through at the end with really aggressive play. And even though they had them pushed up basically where Kasa was able to respawn one after another and contest that point, Nightmare was just able to hold out and, you know, keep them at bay with, you know, Ast into a quad kill at the end for the overall team kill to finish things off.
Yeah, and it's the 1-by-1 fallacy. You know, when you get to that end point where someone has to touch, and we saw Sunny try it on the Venture. When you're going in 1-by-1, it's already like a falling bridge at that point. You know, it's very hard to mount a stable defense. So it came down to that team fight really just before that, as they were moving up, and some great grabs. But it's a quick series tonight, folks. It's a 3-0 to Nightmare as they move on. Their undefeated streak continuing, but great work from Kasa. I think there were great signs of life for them. Some good takeaways. I think they should hold their heads up high on this one and just look towards the next series.
Nightmare definitely showing their veteranship, their experience of being in OWCS and, being able to perform where they need to. Kasa, though, they definitely contended. They didn't just roll over and die. They took a match in round one in that, that control exchange. And then they had a little bit of difficult with Escort. Escort was the one where they had a little bit of a tough time. And it was a little more one-sided. They weren't able to get to that first checkpoint, and then Nightmare was able to kind of just run through after that initial first push that they got held up on and really make that exchange as it got into the open field. But here on push, they managed to take it a very long distance. They were able to compete throughout the entire duration of that match. We saw a really good progression of the push objective on both sides of the map. It wasn't just a one-sided push exchange, and so they definitely brought their game and were able to compete. It was not a one-sided showing by any means.
Yeah, absolutely. And with that being said, that is going to be us for today. We will be back on Monday for another series on Monday evening for those of you in the US. Very early Tuesday morning, if like me, you are in the UK. But thank you so much for joining us. We hope you enjoyed these games. We hope you enjoyed our casting. My name's Simply Nickish, and I'm here with
Zav, and you all have a fantastic weekend.
and we'll see you in a couple of days.